And it just so happens to be that this week I got my booster shot, my COVID booster shot, and that shot made me focus more on my body. It was a good thing because my body was telling me, chill out. And over the next few days, I kind of had a two-way dialogue between my mind and my body. And this reverence for my body and my body having this reverence for me. So it was this two-way partnering together. But as soon as I was done recovering from the COVID shot, I had 3 nights in a row of abdominal pains. And on the second night, I didn't sleep until 7:30 a.m. During this process, when things like this have happened to me before, I immediately reach to the one book that gives me the most comfort, and that is How to Let God Help You by Myrtle Fillmore. It's actually a collection of, posthumously, it was collected together from her talks and some of her writings from Unity Magazine and other sources. And she speaks to me right from page 1, just really speaks to me in a way that I can hear. And what she says to me is, it's all going to be okay. And she has this gentle, convincing way, like a school teacher, after she says, after all, life is a school, right? So she talks to me like a school teacher, or like a mother would talk to a child, in a very gentle way. And she says to me that you have an active role in catching all of the health that is available to you. And through your thoughts and through your intelligence, you can access this because you are divinity itself. So Myrtle Fillmore was considered a healer in her day. And yet she said that it's not the healer that does the work. It's you that does the healing, or more specifically, the God consciousness within you. And you just need to allow it and ask for it, and it shall be open unto you. Myrtle was a mystic because she gave herself permission to find her own way to God, to find her own way to healing. For those of you who are unfamiliar with her story or need to be reminded, she was sick with tuberculosis and other ailments, and she was given 6 months to live. In desperation, she attended a lecture by someone named E.B. Weeks, who was very influential in the New Thought movement. And she came away from that lecture with one takeaway, and that was, I am not a child, therefore, I am a child of God. Let me rephrase. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. Sickness is not who I am. And with that inspiration, she had an epiphany, and she went home and worked out a method. She practiced this method and practiced until she got it right. And she wrote about this method as one of her most popular articles in Unity Magazine, which I'd like to read just an excerpt from. She said, "Life is simply a form of energy and has to be guided and directed in our body by intelligence. And how do we communicate intelligence? By thinking and talking, of course. So I told the life in my stomach that it was not weak or inefficient, but that it was energetic, strong, and intelligent. I told the life in my abdomen that it was no longer infested with ignorant ideas of disease put there by myself and doctors. I told my limbs that they were active and strong. I then went to all the life centers in my body and spoke words of truth to them, words of strength and words of power. I asked for their forgiveness for the foolish, ignorant course that I had pursued in the past, when I had condemned them and called them weak. when I had called them inefficient and diseased. I did not become discouraged at their being slow to wake up, but I kept right on, both silently and aloud. I kept right on declaring the words of truth until the organs responded. And she did this with each part of her body, for those of you who have read this letter of hers. And after working on healing daily over months and months, she healed herself of a lifelong and terminal illness, tuberculosis and other ailments. And this is where I say again, Myrtle was a mystic. She believed in her own power to discover and to heal and to have her own communication and relationship with God. And that thoughts and words were the key. That really puts the power with you, because after all, you are divine. Myrtle's compassionate approach reminds me of the author Stephen Levine and his approach. He said that we are conditioned to send hatred into our pain. We curse our pain and the part of our body where it comes from, don't we? And that body part is instead crying out for mercy and kindness and love. You know, I was talking last year about, when a child gets a boo-boo on their finger, the mother rushes to do what? Kiss the boo-boo, right? And that's automatic. But why don't we have that same compassion towards our injuries? So Stephen Levine also said something interesting. He said, the way we respond to pain is the way we respond to life. Now that's interesting. I think it's useful to study that saying for a while, whether you think it's true or not. It's just a very useful thing to think about. Is the way you respond to pain the way you respond to life? So he said, send forgiveness into your injury, send mercy and not anger into your injury, because how can any part of us heal if we hate it? Right? It makes total sense when we think of things that way. And this is exactly what Myrtle Fillmore did. She sent this kind of compassionate energy. She asked for forgiveness. She was talking to the body parts. It's instructive to think of the body part as separate from you for a moment so you can have a dialogue with it. And so that was this part of this powerful mind-body dialogue that she developed. Now, her husband, Charles Fillmore, found a slightly different way of healing, still dialogue-based. After many months of meditation, he too found healing, but he did so with a message that came from his dreams, and he healed himself. His leg, one leg was shorter than the other. It was in pain. It was severely injured from a childhood skating accident, and he kept affirming. And his discovery, his epiphany, was to say what he called truth statements, today known as affirmative prayer. Say those out loud or silently to himself until he was healed. And he said that one must say these things every day, even if one does not believe them initially. The words will be convincing. The words will have power. And the words will be followed by thoughts which have their power. So just repeat the affirmations and they will work. So both Myrtle and Charles found their own way based on this conversation with themselves. And subsequently, thousands of people flocked to them. This is in the days before, before a lot of types of communication, but so many people found out about them because of the power of what they were doing. And they flocked to them and they wrote letters. And this is where they realized they couldn't answer the letters fast enough. So they developed Silent Unity in 1890. And it's still going strong today. And to this day, according to Linda Martella-Whitsitt, she said, Silent Unity, most phone calls that go there, most emails and texts that go there are about physical healing. And I found that fascinating. I mean, and I guess I don't find it surprising, but I just find it fascinating. So physical healing was at the heart of Unity's formation from the very beginning, and it's still apparently at the heart of its power today. And I wanted to explore this mind-body connection a little bit further this week. So I picked up this book by, you may have heard of Bill Moyers, and it's called Healing and the Mind. And in it, he interviews 15 very noteworthy people, many of them doctors, but one of the people that he interviews about healing and the mind is Jon Kabat-Zinn. But Jon Kabat-Zinn said this, and it's so interesting. He said, health and illness often coexist together. Health and illness often coexist together. I mean, don't you find that true many times? Just because you have an illness or part of you is diseased does not mean the whole of you can't be healthy or can't be whole. And he goes further to say in this interview with John Moyer, health is a dynamic energy that often changes. The body is constantly being catabolized or broken down and built back up. The body is constantly being catabolized, broken down, and built back up. And I thought, isn't that true with every aspect of our lives? If we think of the arc of our emotions, the arc of our spiritual maturity, isn't it this process of constantly being broken down and built back up? And I noticed that if you think about the word wholeness layering itself above healing, wholeness leaves room for perfection and imperfection to coexist together as a perfect whole, as a perfect whole. So it leaves room for you to be whole, perfect, and complete despite your imperfections. I think that's a really strong takeaway from this book by Bill Moyers. The next takeaway from this Jon Kabat-Zinn interview was he talked about the dialogue between the mind and the body. And he said that the mind and the body are one. In fact, most of the people who were interviewed in this book were talking about it is so useful to think about the mind and body as one. And if you scientifically investigate where the mind goes and the signals and the nerves, they are interwoven with the body. And there is this dialogue with the mind and the body. So what we think completely matters. The way we feel completely matter. Emotions matter to our health, and our attitudes matter to our health. That was one of the findings in this book by several of the doctors. They've been studying how emotions, like people in support groups, on one study, a cancer support group, had twice the survival rate of those who were not in a support group. And that is amazing. So what we think matters to the body, and conversely, the way the body is matters to the mind. And I know that sounds a little confusing, but Jon Kabat-Zinn talks about yoga a lot, and he talks about yoga postures influencing the mind, even at the smallest level. And if you don't believe that, I want you to try this experiment. I want you to close your eyes for a second and just try a half smile. Just a half smile. And notice what came to your mind. For most of you, and for me, it affected my disposition. I felt my spirit lift a little bit. And so there is an example of something so subtle as a half smile, which Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a lot in his meditation techniques, and so must Jon Kabat-Zinn. That half smile is really helpful to use during meditation. It can change your neurochemistry. So once again, this connection between mind and body is important, realizing that they are interwoven, they are they cannot really be separated. So I want to go back to that night that I was in pain and I was reading Myrtle Fillmore and what came to me. So I had been up from 3 to 7:30, and after I finished reading Myrtle Fillmore, the pain had gone, and I was ready to go into a deep meditation. And it's this meditation that I've been trying lately, which is simply communing with God, not having a mantra, not having any kind of visualization, not having any counting, but simply saying, I am going to commune with God. Whatever our viewpoint of God is, and it's different for all of us, I'm going to commune with that power. I'm going to become one with that power and that presence. And as soon as I did commune with that presence, messages began to flood to me. And one of those messages was that healing is a process that is constant. Healing, and I had to come out of the meditation and go for the note, the journal. Healing is not just happening when the cut on the finger happens, but healing is happening in the uncut finger all along. Healing is not just happening on the cut finger, but it is happening on the uncut finger, and it has been all along. In fact, all of the parts of our body are constantly renewing. All of the cells in our body are dying and being replenished with new ones. They say that every 10 years, you are completely brand new. And that many of the cells are completely brand new within a matter of days, but some cells take longer. But this constant process of renewing is happening. And our cells in our brain are neuroplastic, constantly rewiring. So healing, if you think of it, instead of just this thing that happens when you get hurt, I'm going to ask for healing. Myrtle Fillmore said, no, the universe is crammed full of health. So health is assured. And so we have to tap into this constant state. We can tap into this constant state that we can commune with, this state of healing that I call wholeness, and that we can get in a rhythm with this wholeness through our mind-body dialogue. You may remember I said last year that Deepak Chopra said that he said that healing is the remembrance of our wholeness. Healing is the remembrance of our wholeness. And maybe not even remembering because we forgot it, but remembering, putting that together in our reality, right? Recognizing, right? Uncovering, discovering, remembering our wholeness. So I think that's a powerful way to view healing and wholeness. So in conclusion, I wanted to return to the healing method used by Charles Fillmore based upon affirmations, which didn't necessarily start with the Fillmores, but these truth statements became central to the mode of prayer in all of New Thought and beyond. There's an app on my phone called the I Am app, and I don't know who wrote it and if they're associated with any New Thought religion, but it's full of I am statements. These are affirmations, and they are powerful statements. But affirmations can go beyond I am statements too. And I'm going to have us just end by closing our eyes once again. And I'm going to say one of these statements at a time, and you're just going to say it back to yourself, or you can say it out loud since you're muted. Let's take a deep breath. Maybe remembering a part of our body that was injured and how it healed automatically. How it healed through this complex series of brain signals and chemical reactions that our community of cells made happen. That the chemistry in our body and the peptides in our body the killer T cells were standing by to fight and defend us, our body has our back. So we just have to let it. So I affirm, first of all, I'll say this and you can say it back. My body and mind are partnering together. I'm grateful for this partnership. And you say, I'm grateful for this partnership. I'm grateful for every cell and fiber of my being. Healing is happening at all times. Healing is the state of who I am. I am whole, perfect, and complete. The power that created me is always at work to restore me to wholeness. Let's say those two again. The power that created me is always at work to restore me to wholeness. The world is crammed full of health. Let's say that again as we breathe. The world is crammed full of health. I remember my wholeness. I recognize my wholeness. And I gratefully participate in this healing process. For this and for so much more, I'm grateful. And so it is.
We pray for blessings, we pray for peace, comfort for family, protection while we sleep. We pray for healing, for prosperity. We pray for a mighty hand to ease our suffering, and all the while you hear each spoken need. You love us way too much to give us lesser things. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? We pray for wisdom, your voice to hear. We cry in anger when we cannot feel you near. We doubt your goodness, we doubt your love, as if every promise from your word is not enough. And all the while you hear each spoken need. You love us way too much to give us lesser things. What if your blessing comes through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? matter what it takes to know you're near. And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? When friends betray us, when darkness seems to win, we know the pain reminds us this is not our home. It's not our home. What if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? What if the greatest disappointments or the aching of this life is a revealing of a greater thirst this world can't satisfy? What if trials of this life, the rain, the storms, the hardest nights, are your mercies in disguise?